Hello Internet, I am the hero of Julios once again with another One Piece chapter summary. This week's chapter is chapter 1090, Kizaru. And the art for this week is Kuro. It's Kuro just reading a book. He's got some cats with him. They're reading books as well, but it's really nice to see Kuro again, especially since if you look at this calendar behind me, you will see that August 31st is coming. And I believe that's the day that the One Piece Netflix series drops. So showing off a old East Blue character at this moment is really appropriate, considering this will be the last chapter we see before Kuro makes his live action debut. Yeah, there's a break next week. That's sad, but that's okay because oh boy, Oda gave us a lot to go over this week. And well, without further ado, let's actually get into it. So the chapter begins with Luffy just threatening everyone, just going, hey, this is Luffy, man who's about to become king of the pirates. His voice is broadcast to every single marine telephone out there. He's like, hey, if you want York alive, you are gonna let us leave. We are gonna take Vegapunk and go. No one's gonna die. And if you don't listen to my demands, we're gonna beat the crap out of York. And York's, the whole time she's just screaming, help me, somebody save me, they're all crazy. Which is a perfectly reasonable thing for York to say because every single member of that crew is insane. Even Robin, as much as I love her, there is still an inkling of insanity inside of each and every one of them. Speaking of Robin, Robin is fine. We even see in the group shot later, Chopper is tending to her wounds. I don't know why Robin is the most wounded of the crew, which greatly upsets me, but that's okay. We're gonna get all this little information trickled back to us chapter by chapter of what exactly happened in the last 24 hours to the Straw Hat crew. Anyways, as Luffy is making his demands over the phone, that's when Saturn responds and says, hey, you're your Straw Hat Luffy, huh? How many of you are dead on your end? And Luffy goes, oh, well, we got a couple of us are injured, and just suddenly you just hear Robin on the phone go, Luffy, don't click. That was a woman's voice. I'm gonna guess Nico Robin's with him. And cuts back to Luffy of like, what's wrong, Robin? And Robin's just like, they were clearly trying to get information out of you. And because they're just gonna keep you talking until you tell them things. Luffy's like, yeah, that's true. That's true. Good call. Good call. Something I would also like to point out is among all the people that were listening to this conversation, Morgans was listening. And by proxy, Vivi and Wapol were also listening. This is a big thing because that means Vivi is near enough to hear all of this going on. We might get Vivi traveling with the crew again if possible. I mean, don't get me wrong, Morgans is doing a fantastic job right now, but Vivi is way safer with Luffy than she is with any other psychopath in this world. So I'm interested to see where that pans out, if Morgans is just wiretapping a Navy vessel or if he's actually in the vicinity right now with Vivi and Wapol in tow. Especially since Vivi and Wapol know too much and they're in a lot of trouble right now. And since Wapol is the one that knows everything and he's too scared to tell anyone because he knows it'll paint a target on his back, I'm pretty sure Vivi and Morgans don't actually know about the D stuff, which means we're going to have to wait until Sabo tells Vivi and Luffy, which means Vivi needs to be with Luffy when that happens. So, I don't know, things are adding up to the potential of Vivi joining back up with the Straw Hat crew, which would be really cool. Unfortunately, I don't think Karu's with her, though. I think he is safely back home at Alabasta. After this conversation with the world government, Luffy and crew are back together. They're all in this big room together. They have a ton of food, which I told you that replicator is the single most important piece of technology to Luffy as it stands right now. But we do see Lilith mourning the loss of both Pythagoras and Shaka. Both Pythagoras and Shaka have died. She was also mourning Edison, but he is actually alive in her arms right now, so it's one of those, like, quit telling people I'm dead scenarios. But while everyone's together, Lucci is mumbling to himself. He's talking, he's like, 2 Vegapunks are dead, 4 Vegapunks are heavily injured, Straw Hat crew, we have Nico Robin, very injured, and Kaku's sitting there lying there, he's like, I know they were seraphims or whatever, but I really thought I could take on more than more than two of them. And why are you mumbling? And Lucci's like, well, oh, nothing. It's just talking to myself. We later learn that Lucci is giving information to Kizaru down in the ships that are outside of Egghead Island, but it's interesting to see Lucci still, despite everything that's going on right now, because he is most likely on the list of people who can die right now, still being super loyal to the world government. While Lucci is relaying his own information, Usopp is getting some info down below, asking all the captured Cypher Pull agents, how you guys doing down there? You holding up well? And they're all like, yes, we're doing great. Thank you, Straw Hat Crew. And one guy's like, don't thank them. They're the enemy. And they're like, yeah, but we were starving to death, as they have this giant amount of food. So my guess is Luffy went down there with the replicator and was like, everybody gets to eat. Nobody goes hungry. That is not the Monkey D. Luffy way. I love that device, and I really hope they get to take one with them if they can. I'm starting to wonder if the power source required for it is tied in deeper to the island than I think, especially considering later on we learn one of the important things to keep intact on Egghead is the power source that can power the Mother Flame. While all of these Cypher Pull agents are thanking Usopp and them, they do have one small request. One thing that would make them just a little bit more comfortable in their current captured position. Could you move the Seraphim away from here? Because they kind of creep us out. As we cut to all four Seraphim captured in little bubbles. As Vegapunk explains that these bubbles, because they contain the power of the ocean itself, they're like sea prism bubbles. And since every Seraphim is a Devil Fruit user, they are essentially out of commission right now. Even the young S-Hawk, the Mihawk Seraphim, actually even says, how dare they put us in here, which, yeah, I mean, we knew the Seraphim could talk. We've never seen the Kuma one or the Jinbei one talk yet, but it's uncanny to see them actually talking. And Frankie even mentions how cool it was of little S-Snake to actually unstone everyone, turn Usopp, Lilith, half of Frankie's face all back to normal. And S-Snake, she's flustered about this because she says, just don't, no, I did it, just don't bring that up again, because the reason she did it was because Luffy asked her to. No manual override, no change of heart, no intelligence within herself that allowed her to deny orders. It's just because Luffy said please. Luffy said, hey, they're my friends, you're the only one that can do it. And in a very flustered state, S-Snake freed everyone that was made of stone. Even Luffy then thanks her again over the visual screen, and she's like, oh my gosh, is he saying he loves me now? And it's adorable. But Jinbei points out that it's funny to see how little S-Snake is so much like Hancock, even with the cold exterior, who refuses to do anything, will immediately melt and do whatever Luffy asks. The most interesting part of this, though, is that Vegapunk points out that's not something in their programming. This is not some order from Vegapunk. It is Hancock's DNA that is altering what S-Snake does. Which implies, at least to me, that the DNA sample from Hancock must have been taken before or after the time skip began. So like, once Luffy started training, sometime during those 2 years, they must have gotten the sample from Hancock. Because if they got it from her when she first became a warlord, this wouldn't have worked, because that DNA sample had nothing to do with Luffy. It is interesting to see how the lineage factor, how the cloning process works in the world of One Piece. That something like an emotional attachment to a specific individual is hard encoded into the very fabric of what makes a person a person. Plus, it's also just really cute to see all four of them in those little bubbles. They're like little capsule toys. This does raise another fatal flaw in the design of these things, because Doflamingo's crazy. Gecko Moria is crazy. What's stopping those two Seraphim from going rogue just from craziness? Hancock can disobey an order because York never told her to unfreeze everyone, and Luffy managed to get her to do it. And the ultimate complaint, I will keep it very brief. Why does the original Vegapunk have no power over these Seraphim? Why did York get to give a command that no other Vegapunk can override? It is a horrible flaw, and I will not stop saying that. But speaking of seeing through flaws, the beautiful and wonderful York actually did see through one flaw. A flaw that she has with all the other Vegapunks is their brains are connected via the Frontier Dome, or the big egg in the middle of the Frontier Dome. So she didn't sync up to it and put an encoded passcode on the Frontier Dome, keeping it locked. And because she's not synced, the other Vegapunks don't know the code. Now, she is greatly underestimating the intelligence of her other selves, as the rest of them point out to her, as 3 of them begin to start hacking into the system, trying to get that code without prying it from York. As the planning continues further, Vegapunk talks to Nami about where they're going to go next, because they cannot stay on Egghead long enough to latch on to some new coordinates. They have to use the current needles that Nami's log pose has. Fortunately, the new world has 3 log poses and allows you to pick 3 different islands. We know for a fact that the 3 islands from Wano were Elbaf, Egghead, and then Winter Island. Nami tells Vegapunk that there's only 1 needle left that is still stable, and as it is pointing in one specific direction, Vegapunk goes, yes, that's northeast of here. I think he said northeast. But that is Elbaf. And upon hearing Elbaf, Luffy and Usopp are just like, we're going. We're finally going. Oh yes, Luffy, Usopp, the whole fandom is with you on that. We are finally going to Elbaf because everything seems to lead up in that direction, which means we are going to see what's left of Eustace Kid's crew. We're going to meet up with Shanks. We're going to see Dory and Broggy. I don't know if Saul is there on Elbaf. He might be. No, I think he is. That's right. So we're just going to have a whole bunch of reunions. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great arc. I don't know what's happening with Blackbeard. We still haven't seen what of the ship that is coming. We have no indication of what Blackbeard is up to right now, because we don't see a single member of his crew, despite an actual boat of his approaching Egghead Island yesterday. So that's still up in the air. But Elbaf, I'm already looking forward to that. I know we're still trying to get off Egghead, but Elbaf is on the way, people. We are finally getting there. So the current plan to get off Egghead Island is as follows. Luffy, Bonnie, Frankie, and Lilith will go to Vega Force 1. Vega Force 1 will pick up the Thousand Sunny and bring it back to the rest of the group. Everyone gets on the boat, and Vega Force 1 flies in the direction of Elbaf as far as it can. Apparently a problem that Vega Force 1 has is that it can only fly within a certain range of Egghead Island, going back to the power source problem that Vegapunk is having right now. As they reach the edge of where they can fly, Vega Force 1 will start to fall, and from there the Thousand Sunny will Kuda burst right into the sky 1 kilometer away, and that should be just enough distance to get away from everyone that's trying to currently kill them. There's actually this really cool interaction between Frankie and Vegapunk as they're talking about it, because Frankie's like, oh, don't worry about that, because as soon as we get to the end of the range, we'll Kuda burst off 1 kilometer. And Vegapunk's like, oh, your ship can fly 1 whole kilometer without, needing a break? And Frankie's like, yeah, it's cola powered. And Vegapunk's just like, what is cola power? So I'm looking forward to Frankie getting some upgrades, hanging out with Vegapunk, and the 2 of them talking science together, or science fiction together, if you're talking about Coca-Cola powered cannons and ships and all that. But as the 4 who are going to Vega Force 1 are talking, Luffy and Bonnie are talking about the important things, the absolute essentials, which is food. Luffy tells Bonnie there is not nearly enough food for all of us on that ship right now. And Bonnie's like, I absolutely agree. What we need is pizzas. So many pizzas. We need all the pizzas we can print right now. And Luffy goes, no. We got to think smart. Luffy thinking smart. We got to think smart on this. Cheese. We just need a ton of cheese. Infinite amounts of cheese. Sanji can make the pizzas out of the cheese. And Bonnie's like, That's true. That's true. Sanji can do that. Good thinking, Luffy. Sanji is a great man. He can cook. He can fight. He is awesome. And the Bonnie Sanji shippings have begun. I look forward to seeing the fan art. But personally, me, it's still Sanji Pudding. If my sister's watching this, it's Sanji Vivi. I won't fight you. But that's adorable. And Luffy even tells Bonnie, wow, you sure are in a chipper mood for someone who has been crying for the last day straight. Which, personally, I would still like to see that flashback. I really hope we get to hear about that soon. I would like to know if my theory about Bonnie is true, and maybe that's why she's in a more chipper mood. But I'll leave a link in the description to my Bonnie theory, because I do want people to hear that theory more. Even if I'm wrong, it's my first time actually coming up with a theory that I haven't heard someone else say. But as the four of them begin to run off towards Vega Force 1, we take one last cut back to Kizaru and Saturn, as the two of them are discussing how to get onto the island. Kizaru says, it's got a lot of defenses, it's, highly defensed there with all of its lasers and stuff, and Saturn raises a really good point of, you're made of light, so can't you dodge the lasers? And Kizaru's like, yeah, I can do that. And he goes, okay, good. You go right up to the labosphere, go right up to Egghead and kill Vegapunk. And Kizaru goes, oh, no. Can't do it that way. See, I got a bro, I got a little boy, I got my little nephew. He's defending Vegapunk with his life. And it would be absolutely wrong of me to at least not honor him with a fight. If you're not going to let me do anything else my way, you got to let me do this. To which Saturn goes, fine, go ahead. Yeah, take out the little Dora the Explorer, and we'll get on with this elsewhere. And that's when he launches himself towards, and Sentomaru's standing there, and he's like, oh, you're finally coming, Uncle, but I must remind you, I have the greatest defense in the world, as he blocks Kizaru's kick. And we cut back up to Luffy running with the rest, and he kind of freezes for a minute. Luffy's got some really good observation hockey going on. Everybody else says, what is it, Luffy? And Luffy goes, someone really strong has landed on the island. And that's where the chapter ends. So much stuff happened. I have my notes right here. I actually filled a whole page, which is not something I usually do. I usually fill about half a page before I've got everything I need. But we got the world government knowing that a few Straw Hats are injured right now. I still don't know why Robin's injured. Lucci relaying information. Hancock Seraphim overriding her original programming because of Luffy, which is really interesting. We have Bubbles, which, if they're like Sea Prism, how do you pop them? Like, I obviously assume the Seraphim aren't trapped forever, but if they're as easy to pop as poking a bubble, the Seraphim would get out. So that's a question on my mind. York added a code to the Frontier Dome, which prevents the other Vegapunks from just shutting it down, but they're currently hacking away at it. Elbaf is our next destination. The goal is to fly there, and Sentomaru is fighting Kizaru. Given that Rob Lucci was able to beat Sentomaru, I doubt Kizaru is going to take very long to do this, so not since Kuzan, not since Aokiji, all that time ago, are we going to see Luffy seriously fight an admiral. I look forward to seeing how this turns out.